Hello, I'm Sharon Heung, a PhD candidate at Cornell Tech. I'm excited to share our paper, Vulnerable, Victimized, and Objectified, Understanding Ableist Hate and Harassment Experienced by Disabled Content Creators on Social Media. Before I begin, I'd like to give a quick content warning that this talk covers detailed anecdotes of hate and harassment related to self-harm, suicide, and death. So you might be familiar with this article around TikTok admitting to suppressing videos by disabled, queer, and fat creators. So what happened was that there was an image of the moderator's rulebook that was leaked, and it was shown that they were purposefully advising moderators to suppress content with disabled people in it. TikTok claimed that this policy was to prevent disabled TikTokers from being bullied and harassed. And since then, TikTok has apologized and removed the policy. So what I want to highlight here is that, one, disabled TikTokers were experiencing so much hate that TikTok attempted to do something about it. And two, solutions like video suppression are these quick band-aid solutions that actually prevented disabled TikTokers from meaningfully participating on the platform. And that is being able to create disability-related content that actually got engagement by the disability community. And so this rather recent event really showcases how crucial it is to first understand what are the forms of hate and harassment disabled people experience before deploying a solution that actually ended up harming disabled social media users. And so prior work has begun to highlight these negative social experiences. Recently within HCI, there's been some papers that have surfaced instances of online hate and harassment towards disability activists and specific disability communities like the ADHD community. However, no study to date has directly investigated what are the varying ways in which disabled people experience hate and harassment online. And our study contributes a holistic understanding of the different types of disability-related hate and harassment disabled content creators face. And so throughout this talk, I will refer to disability-related hate and harassment as ableist hate. And so this definition of ableism is similar to sexism and racism. It's broadly discrimination, bias, and prejudice towards disabled people. And in this study, we really wanted to understand what types of ableist hate and harassment and discrimination do disabled content creators face online. We recruited a variety of creators from bloggers to streamers to activists, and also all the varying different forms of disability to really get at the breadth of the different forms of hate and harassment. We also wanted to understand what social identities like race, sexuality, and gender lead to a higher risk of experiencing ableist hate and harassment. And here we're taking an intersectional lens to really be thinking about how might the disabled content creators' identities lead to a different amount of hate and harassment. And lastly, how do disabled content creators cope with ableism? This includes short-term ways of coping, and also long-term effects in terms of how it affected their content creation practices. And so to answer these research questions, we conducted surveys with 50 participants, and 20 of them participated in an hour-long follow-up interview. The survey was especially helpful for research question number 2. We were trying to model any significance in the disabled content creator social identity and the actual amount of ableist hate and harassment. So now we'll highlight some key insights from our findings, but please read the paper for more details. First, I'll talk about the ableist hate and harassment participants shared. So we developed a taxonomy of ableist hate and harassment given all of the experiences that were shared across the surveys and the interviews. Within our taxonomy, we have ableist categories, and that includes slurs and derogatory language, violent and eugenics-related speech, questioning ability and denying access, mocking and invalidating disability identity, and objectifying the disabled body. Within each category, there are several ableist types. For example, under slurs and derogatory language, there's 3 ableist types, including short slurs, using disability as an insult, and death threats, suicide, and self-harm. So now I'll just give 2 examples of these ableist types. So one type is eugenics related, which is a new and unique form. One participant even called this World War II Nazi rhetoric. Eugenics related comments are violent remarks with connotation that disabled people are unworthy of life. For example, P9 says, "People think my life is just suffering, so it'd be better if disabled people died because disabled people set us back, and we should bring back gas chambers for disabled people." The gas chambers is a direct reference to Nazi eugenics. And this is extremely and clearly hateful. Some eugenic type comments were actually more subtle by mentioning genetics or using biological terms like it's survival of the fittest. And so these more subtle forms of eugenic type comments may go unnoticed by moderators who might not be aware or knowledgeable on eugenics and disability. Another type of hate we found is the faking disability type. And this type has been found in prior work. And we add to this work by uncovering very extreme cases of faking disability. So for example, P1's harasser found articles with misinformation to support the accusation that P1 was faking their disability. P1 told us, the harasser is like, I'm disabled, and I can tell she doesn't have the disability she says she has. And they've come up with fake articles about my syndrome that are not factual at all. And one of them was like, people with this syndrome die before the age of 16. This person says, see, she's supposed to be dead. And so these tactics of combining misinformation with these accusations attempt to make the actual accusation more believable. This can cause damage to the creator's reputation and also subsequent hate from other users who may be reading the comment and also reading the misinformation. In our findings, we also pull out how these ableist experiences manifest differently, given the intersecting identities of the creator. So using disability as an insult is a type of ableist hate that we had found in our taxonomy. And this really highlights how ableism interacts with other intersectional identities. The type using disability as an insult is when harassers use the term disability in a derogatory way. And that further stigmatizes the word disability and can also be used to cause compounded harm. So piece 26 posted about being queer and disabled, and during the interview, reads out a particular comment that says, quote, to be fair, I'd offer statuses to suicide if they use pronouns in their bio. You're technically double handicapped. The best place for you is the bin. So the harasser is referring to their queerness as a second disability. And this really showcases how intersectional ableist hate manifests differently and can cause compounded harm towards multiple marginalized identities. In this case, this harasser is attacking P26 queer and disability identity. So not only do we want to understand how intersectionality shapes the way ableist hate appears, but we also wanted to investigate if there were significant differences in the actual amount of hate, given the creator's race, gender, and sexuality. So we conducted two models, a linear regression model to understand significant differences in the amount of ableist hate, and a logistic regression model to examine the likelihood of experiencing a disproportionate amount of ableist hate. So for the sake of time, I won't go too much into the model, but something I will like to call out is that our models did predict LGBTQ disabled content creators to experience more ableist hate than non-LGBTQ creators. And they were also more likely to experience a disproportionate amount of ableist hate and harassment. And so this descriptive model really signals that intersectionality does play a role in the actual amount of ableist hate and harassment the participant received. So now I'll go through the aftermath of experiencing ableist hate and harassment. Participants coped with the hate by using platform tools like reporting and blocking, responding directly to the harasser, or responding by creating new content. For example, we had disability activists who said they would use hate as inspiration to create educational content and to know what to prioritize in terms of their advocacy. Participants also mitigated future hate. And this involved reducing the visibility of their platform, so such as making their account private during harassment experiences. Participants also had different boundaries of navigating disability disclosure. So thinking about how visible their disability is online. Some participants said that they have a rule of thumbs that they would never include their disability in their username because they thought that would be too visible and would make them an easy target. Participants also self-censored over time. And so this included deciding to not share certain aspects of themselves, including the type of disability that they have, or also just insights into their disability experience. Overall, throughout the surveys and the interviews, participants really shared the short-term emotional impact and also the long-term harm. I'll just highlight one quote here that touches on how hate and harassment over time may lead to anxiety towards posting and creating content. S11, who was a survey participant, said, I was told that I was faking my disability for attention and taking away resources from the real disabled people who needed it. This impacted my mental health, making me feel low and anxious. I worried that everyone secretly thought that too. I reported it to Instagram, but Instagram said that it didn't breach their policy. It makes me more worried about posting online. And something to note here is that S11 reported it, but Instagram did not take any action, which made them feel more worried about posting and also unsupported through ableist hate and harassment. And this is something that other participants did echo of not feeling supported by the platform around specifically ableism and ableist hate. Participants also mentioned the downstream financial impacts of experiencing ableist hate and harassment over time. Experiencing ableist hate and harassment may lead to them not creating as frequent types of content, and that may also reduce their ability to monetize the content that they're creating as a content creator. P17 actually ended up stopped doing paid sponsorships to protect her reputation and authenticity as an autistic creator. She says, harasser said, look how many sponsored posts she does. She's just doing this to make money. She's not even really autistic. And so I quit sponsored posts. I've had to turn down $1,000 contracts because of it. And so here, there's a lot more at stake since we were talking to content creators. And there's a lot of pressure to keep creating content and also to protect their authenticity as a content creator. And so experiencing ableist hate and harassment has downstream effects on their career opportunities and monetary gains as a creator. In our discussion, we discussed the taxonomy of ableist hate and harassment and limitations in future work. For the purpose of time, I'll dive into this idea of platform-enabled ableism, which is when platforms exacerbate or facilitate ableist experiences. And we use an infrastructure lens to really pull this apart and to analyze it. So an infrastructure lens is an analytical lens that prior HCI researchers have used to understand what happens when a technology, or in this case, when the platform breaks down. So there are three main concepts in an infrastructure lens. The first is the infrastructural breakdown, which is when the infrastructure breaks or it does not work as expected. This leads to infrastructural work, which is the labor in which to fix or mediate the actual effects of the breakdown. And over time and over repeated breakdowns, people develop resilience. And this is practices to work around the breakdown or to protect themselves from maybe the effects of the breakdown. So I'll just go through one infrastructural breakdown, which is when platforms did not count ableist hate as hateful. So participants, for example, would report to remove an ableist slur and platforms would not remove it. And in this case, this is when the platform is not working to what the content creator expects. And because of this breakdown, this led to emotional harms, like the platform reaffirming the harasser speech. So participants said that when the platform does not remove a report of an ableist slur, in their own words, this is like the platform's way of affirming or saying that this kind of language is okay on the platform. Another emotional harm is internalized ableism, where they begin to believe or read into the actual ableist comment that was not removed. Because of the breakdown, this led to infrastructural work. And so the creator had to then individually delete hateful comments. This was largely motivated by protecting their other followers from being triggered. They even crowdsourced other users to report on their behalf. And so this was kind of under the assumption that the more reports that a hateful comment has, the more likely the platform would actually be able to remove it or remove similar types of hateful comments. And over time, over repeated breakdowns and over infrastructural work, participants developed resilience towards protecting themselves from either receiving ableist hate or viewing ableist hate in the first place. And this included practices like avoiding reading the comments, so never reading the comment section just to prevent reading any sort of hate at all, self-censorship, so being careful about what they disclose, and really protecting themselves in terms of reducing the likelihood of receiving hate and harassment. And along those lines, over-editing and overthinking the content that they post. So participants mentioned that they would continuously edit content in order to ensure there wasn't anything in there that could lead to ableist hate and harassment. So check out the paper to read more about another infrastructural breakdown we found, which was and where instances of platforms wrongfully censoring disability-related content. Overall, our paper contributes a taxonomy of ableist hate and harassment, a statistical model considering how intersectional identities may lead to different frequencies of ableist hate and harassment, and a diagram of this idea around platform-enabled ableism. Thank you for listening, and be sure to read our paper.